Okay, so as everybody knows, we have a topic of the week we discuss in the I Refuse to Fail 1530 event. And this week we are going to talk about pricing your products or services. Everybody has an idea of what their product or service is about. And this week it's going to be sponsored by the connectionsdirectory.com. So I'll kick it off a little bit with just to try to get people's idea is when you went to price your product or service, what made you come up with that pricing structure? And if you would like to, chime in and discuss that part just to get it started, just raise your hand either physically or otherwise. Okay, Carolyn Williams, I Refuse to Fail partner.
Thanks. I feel like we kind of had a little advantage in that we had a print company first, and then we started the digital business cards. So we purposely kept the price of the digital business cards less than a box of printed business cards. So that's where we came up with only $70 a year versus people on average were spending anywhere from 100 on the real low end, kind of, business cards has got the job done, to some people spent $300-400 on a box of business cards because they had, I mean, we've all held a business card in our hands sometimes and go, that's really nice, so that would be worth more. But so that's where we came up with that. And I don't know if, I know now that Mayo's here, might have more of an opinion on that. I'm curious to hear what he has to say too.
Okay, Roberta.
Absolutely. So this was a struggle for me for many years, not being taught about business or trying to keep up with people in my industry who do what I do in sponsorship. So I realized that I couldn't follow the trend because I don't even know if it was fictitious or not. I don't even know what was happening behind the scene, to tell the truth. So, and as well as some of the prices were like way too high, would price people out. So what I recently decided was to price my services to match my cost of living. So everything, inflation, everything that's going on here in North America and probably throughout the world, prices have gone up. It's increasing. The dollar store is now 125. So I decided to price according to fit my current lifestyle needs, but make some profit in there so I can do some things, and so I can even turn into sponsoring events myself. So that's how I've decided to come up with my pricing, and I do allow a bit of flexibility, but I have my standard price.
Okay, I have a question about that. Okay, and I'm going to give you a drastic analogy. All right. Let's say that your standard of living was much higher than what the market will pay for what it is that you offer. I worked with a girl who was a massage therapist, and she charged, I don't really remember, let's just say she charged $35 an hour. I don't know what she charged for massage, right? And she said her rent went up, so she raised the price to $50 an hour or whatever it was. She told me it was an increase. And I said, well, how's that working for you? She said, well, I'm having a hard time finding people to pay me 35. I said, so do you think raising it to 50 is going to get you more business? You're not the post office. The post office can raise the rates when things get slow, and we all pay for it. Okay. But you don't have anybody to fill you in when you raise your rate to make sure you get what you want. And so, I said, maybe what you might want to do is look at a different way of doing that, is to maybe even lower your price and do two of them instead of doing one of them, and to get what you're getting. But if that works for you, for heaven's sakes, if that's working for you, then I would suggest you raise your style of living 2 times and then raise your price 2 times. But I just find it difficult to do in most businesses, whether it's a product or a service, to do that. But if that works for you, that's great. Eugene?
Yeah, to respond to that, Carl.
Okay.
Yeah, so I live a very simple lifestyle, even though I am a vegan and things cost way too much as a vegan, but that's not me putting the price on that. So I live with all my essential needs, not the luxury, even though I would like some a Maserati, but still, I'm cool with that. So I'm not trying to work harder. I want to work smarter. And I love what you said about, instead of writing one sponsorship proposal at a four figure, then I can lower the price and then get two. I mean, because that is my skill set, I can do that quickly. But with certain things, I don't want to double up because of the time and the energy. I just, so I wouldn't do it with everything, but with some things, yes.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not in disagreement with you. The thing is that we did have somebody come here one time that had a business model that I didn't even know existed, didn't even know anybody needed it. And she was charging $1,200 for it. And I thought, wow, I thought everybody did that themselves. I didn't know they paid $1,200. That's how's that working for you? Well, I'm finding it hard to get people to pay me that. And I said, well, why don't you lower it to 600 and do three of them instead of 1,200 and not doing any of them? And oh no, I'm not going to lower my standards. I'm not going to lower. I am worth it. Well, I try to, look at pricing based on what the market will bear more than what I think my personal value is, because I'm really not worth anything if nobody wants it. Okay. So, I mean, and that's kind of where I was coming from, but it just depends on what's working. You can try it. I mean, there are some instances where I took a guerrilla marketing course back in the 90s that said that, before the internet, and we did videotapes, and they said, if you're doing a video on how to grow petunias, okay, go to the library, see how many people are getting books on growing petunias, number one, find out what the value is, and then do your videotape on that, and do one in Flowers America at $9.95 and do another one and another one at $29.95. You might be surprised that the $29.95 does better because it may have a perceived value, a higher value. So it depends on what you're doing, but you almost have to test everything out. But don't get stuck on pricing something because you think you're worth it, or because of the work. Because if nobody wants it, it just proves that I could do that. But I would tell you that if I did that, of course, I'm not selling anything, but if I were selling something and I did that just because I thought it was worth it, I think that I might be on the outside looking in. And that was my point. But you got to test it. And I'm not saying not to try what you're talking about. Okay. Okay. Eugene.
Yeah, well, but presently we have 2 feature films that are streaming around the world. We started to try to do theatrical on them. Of course, then the theater decides usually what they charge per ticket. But when you get to streaming, you can choose to. We started out where they paid per view, but we're doing much better now that it is streaming all over the world, and you can watch it for free with commercials. Okay. And so it is still a charge because it's time. Time is money. So people are spending their time to watch it. And that's how that decides how much money we get. But I'm very interested in different ways of distribution that might be interesting, because we're also going to be doing games, and games we're talking about offering them first for free, because when you play a game and you get hooked, then if you want to play it more, you have to pay.
I understand that, and that's a methodology to get the business. But when you're actually creating, what the value of your product or service is, how are you determining that? Okay, I understand the revenue streams and how you're the constraint of doing streaming or in a theater or whatever. But competition dictates a lot of what you do. If you're the only one with that widget and nobody else has it, you can charge whatever you want because you have no competition if somebody wants it. But as soon as you have somebody coming in and it's almost like gas stations, one has their gas at this amount and then the next one goes a little bit lower and you get into a gas war, because they want to make sure they get that business. They'd rather make a nickel off 90% than a dime off 10%. Okay. So, you got to decide what your model is. So, but I understand where you're coming from. Jeff?
A couple of things. One is Alex Hormozy has several different videos about pricing and so forth, and they fit different kinds of businesses. I got some real value there. I would like to find out from the group here, if you lean more toward when you discover your price, do you artificially inflate it and offer a discount? Or would you rather say, okay, this is what it's worth. Let's offer more value if you can, if your business model works that way. Does that make sense? To me, those two are very, very different, but not in every business. If I could get some feedback from people here, that would be great.
Okay, I'll respond on it, and then if anybody else wants to comment on that, you can.
Anybody but Carl.
Yeah,
I'm
I
kidding.
understand. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm gonna respond on it anyway, Jeff. But you know, both of those work. Sometimes it's done as a, you know, raising the price if you're competitive with somebody that does a similar thing. Obviously, if you're raising it way ahead of somebody else and then reducing it down to what theirs is, you've accomplished nothing. But this is what the cereal industry did back with coupons when coupons first started. Wheat was very expensive, and they knew they had to raise the price to cover the cost of wheat, but yet they didn't want to lose market share. So what they did is they put a coupon out, and they would give somebody, you know, give you 25 cents off on a box, which brought it back to the old price, knowing that the numbers were that only about 20% of the people would utilize a coupon if they were lucky. So then they would get their regular price. So so that's how they use that discounted option. But Mayo, what do you think?
I found that a lot of times one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of us make when we go to start pricing, a lot of times we price emotionally based off of our personal situations, and it's understandable because that's a starting point. But what I say is it goes back to what I was saying earlier about your org chart. There's a lot of things that we don't a lot of times factor when we start pricing. Like for instance, does that price that you're charging, does it afford for you to be able to include within that charge, in that fee, paying for an employee or paying for other costs that may not exist today? But it's a lot harder to dramatically increase your prices down the road. So I would say look at your business, look a little bit closer at some of the things that not only that you're doing now, but want to do later, and see can you afford that based off of what you're charging. Now, true, there is this whole factor of what the market will bear. But if the market cannot bear what you need to be able to survive, then number one, you may need to revisit the product that you're looking to sell. The
Yep.
second part of this I want to finish with is at this point in the game for me, if I want to charge a certain price, I always add more value. I don't lower my price. I add more value all the time. I add more value until it's worth what I feel as though I want and need to charge. And there's a difference between price and affordability. I'll stop there.
No, I got you, Mayo, and you're absolutely right. And it also depends on the business, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but you know, if you do your research and you find out that you can't afford to sell something at a certain price, you might want to look at a different business or a different product or a different service because you know, if you it's almost like advertising. If you've got a product that has to be advertised and you can't afford to advertise it and go through the advertising curve to get to where you need to be, then you might want to look at a different pricing model or something that has a larger return on investment per item. But I don't disagree with what you said, Mayo. Louise.
Well, so first of all, in the newspaper industry, freelancers are paid per word, 10 cents per word. And early in my career, I did the math that I would spend 5 hours on an article and I would get like $50. So to me, the math wasn't worth it. And so then I also learned early in my career that businesses who I was trying to target rather than publications didn't understand things like 10 cents a word. They wanted either a flat rate or an hourly rate because that is what they were used to paying their employees or their contractors. So that is early in my career, I switched to an hourly rate and a flat rate for big projects. But the other thing is the Maryland Writers Association, when I was living in Baltimore, they sent out a sheet for what freelance writers was getting. And I realized that my prices were way below the average of Maryland writers. So I upped my price not to be the highest and not to be the lowest, but to be in the middle with all and be the average price. And I have kept it at an average price of what writers are generally getting. But also, I can raise my prices on new clients. I can't do it on existing clients. But when I get a new client every year, I raise the prices because they don't know what I used to charge. So that's how I've been able to stay with inflation.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that either. I mean, you don't want to be too low or too high. You got to find the sweet spot. So, Santa.
I guess one of the primary decisions in this discussion is, are you producing and selling a product, or are you selling yourself? Like Louise just said, she wants to price herself because she is the commodity. She wants to price herself that she's normal. Why does she not want to have the attitude that I'm the best, so I'm going to be at the higher end? Now, going back to my DJ world, everybody said they were $400, $500. That was the going rate. But if you did the math and you said, okay, there's only 52 Saturdays in a year, you can't make a living and only charge $400 a year. So you would go back and say, okay, I want to make $70,000 this year. What do I need to do that in 52 Saturdays? Oh, wait, I'm not going to book 52 Saturdays. I'm only going to book 40 Saturdays. So when you have to look at it from a business to business perspective to find out what you need to charge to make yourself a living. Now, if you're selling a commodity, that changes the diagram and the structure altogether, because now you can sell multiples of the same thing to hopefully generate enough income to cover that cost of living.
Yeah, that's true too. So there's a lot of aspects to it. And I think when you get ready to price something or to put a, set a price or whatever it is, yeah, you do have to look at what you can live on. But that goes back to what is even this product or service going to pay my bills? I mean, you might have to have 2 jobs or 2 products or, whatever in order to do that. So there's, most every topic that we discuss, I keep coming up with this. You got to do research. You got to research, and then do a little bit more research, and then come up with some kind of a common denominator you think is going to work for you. And, also, there's the old saying that, perception is reality. If somebody's charging 2.5 times for their product or service, it could be perceived that they're worth 2.5 times what the other person is selling. And they might be, if they are adding value, as Mayo said, if they're adding more value to what they do. Okay. My dad used to be in the graphic arts business, and he would sell the newspapers and things like that, ink and paper and stuff like that, right? And we had a place called Web City, and they discounted everything. It was like Walmart now. Okay, it was the first indoor mall, and you could buy everything there at a discount. He'd go to a printer and tell the printer that this product was $10, and they'd say, "What are you talking about? I can get it for $8 down at Web City." And he'd say, "Yeah, but I don't come with that." In other words, there was a value that he brought to the table, right? And he said, "But you can go get it. In fact, I can tell you where you can get it for $7, but I don't come with that." And 9 times out of 10, he'd end up selling for $10 because they realized that he added value that was worth more than the savings that they could get. And so so there's a lot of different aspects of this. And I think what you really have to do is look at the market, because it's different now that we have the internet. Everything has changed. Okay. And figure out what you're going to, how you're going to price it. And then you might have to pivot. You might have to do it a couple different ways, or figure ways where you're not leaving money on the table, to where your offer at $10 is too much for somebody, but you got one at $5 to get them in, to gain that confidence, the know, like, and trust. and then upsell them to the $10 because now they realize the value. So to, I think we've pretty much covered every aspect of this. And if anybody else has a final comment, I'll allow that, but then we're going to stop the recording and we're going to post this one. And if you all want to watch it, it'll be on our I Refuse to Fail YouTube channel.
Carl, there was
Audio now
one
and
phrase that I learned that I thought was going to lightheartedly set the stage for a higher price. He said, when you buy quality, you only cry once.
That's true. There's a point there.
Here's a quick one for you, Carl. We used to say in the DJ world all the time, people would phone and the first question out of their mouth would be, how much? And my response would be, hey, I've got a car for sale for you behind door number 1. Are you going to buy this $5,000 car today? Well, because the North American market has the Walmart mentality where they want the best, but they want it for the cheapest. Well, they're not going to buy a $5,000 car with a yes or no answer. They want more questions. So why do they treat businesses on a price perspective instead of the value that the business is offering as the value of the dollar amount that they're offering?
It's for the same, what you said, it's the mentality.
Right. So if you throw back at them and say, do you want to buy the car? Yes or no? It's $5,000. 99 out of 100 people are going to say no. And you go, well, sucks to be you. You just missed out on a Porsche 911 that was worth, $190,000. But you had the mentality that you wanted to know more versus answering the question whether you wanted the deal or not.
Okay. All right. Okay, Bill, real quick.
Yeah, real quick. If your income or revenues don't exceed your outgo, your upkeep will become your downfall. And that is the ultimate issue that you have to deal with in this pricing matter. But I will agree, there were some wonderful ideas shared, and I commend everybody who did. Thank you.
Okay, Bill. All right. Well, we're going to close this one out. And like I said, this is what we're doing every week. We're having a discussion. We tape it. We put it on the channel. You're happy, you can go and review it or share it with other people. We'd love for you to do that. And as always, we want to bring good quality people like yourselves back to the events. And you're welcome to come back anytime. So I'm going to stop the recording now.